Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life. This is Labor Day weekend, interviewing and talking with Brian Johnson, our city manager. Hey, Brian.
Rico, how
Thanks.
are you?
Good, good. Thanks for being with us. Um,
Absolutely.
this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about 25 Tech Park and the 13 unit condo unit that's going to be working out of that building. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what the RDA is doing with new buildings coming out and and some of the rules in that. And then we'll recap a little bit with Jones Bridge Park and what's going on there. Some update on that. So why don't we start? So 25 Technology Parkway, is where a 13 unit condo development is going to go, and it's literally going into a office building that's going to be gutted out versus it being torn down and going on that. So tell us how that's working and why they chose to do that versus tearing it all down and maybe building 40 townhomes there, which they could, right? Assuming.
Yeah, they could. So this one is a little bit unique in that it's actually, to back up, it's actually 25 Tech Park South.
South, right?
Believe it or not, they're in the infinite wisdom of whoever named the streets inside of Technology Park. We have Technology Parkway, which
Right.
runs
Right.
essentially parallel to PIB, to Peachtree Parkway, in the middle of the split.
Mm-hmm.
Then the connection coming off into Tech Park, coming off of, I guess it's now Peachtree Boulevard, not PIB, but coming off of there into Tech Park Atlanta. There's a small stretch of road that links up Peachtree Boulevard and Technology Parkway. And
Yeah.
of all the words that could have been used, they decided to call it Tech Park South or Technology
Yes.
Parkway South,
Yes.
which it doesn't even really run north south, but regardless, that's where it is.
Yep.
And this is an example of a property owner who's owned the office building for 25 plus years
Mm-hmm.
and approached the city with this rezoning request because the building's use for office only
Mm-hmm.
is such that he doesn't believe he could generate the amount of rent that he could by doing something else. And the current condition of the building is older,
Right.
so it's not competitive for those who are really looking for. So he would have to put money into renovating it, and he just said the money to put into renovating something merely to chase um, you know less office occupants than we've had maybe ever.
Yeah.
And so he said, I want to do something different. He is a he's a resident, really a age restricted or retirement community developer
Mm-hmm.
by trade. So he has residential development experience and wanted to do that here. It's the first time we've allowed a residential development inside of Tech Park, not on a main corridor like on 141 or Peachtree Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
So he came in and asked for it to be rezoned for 13 condo or equity units.
Right.
And he came to that number because he's taking the existing building and he's gutting it and turning that into residential units. It's a building that overlooks the lake in Tech
Mm-hmm.
Park. So it is in a good location, easy access to, to two main roads out there. And the product or the, the target audience for the residential units are going to be a target unit we've talked about here recently, which is either the empty nester who has owned a house in Peachtree Corners for a long time, they don't have kids, they want to downsize, but they want to leave the area, and they'd like to buy something and not rent, and there's nothing really here for them to buy that doesn't basically take what they could get out of their house and put all of it into something else. An
Right.
example of that would be Waterside. Some
Right.
of the complaints from people is those units are as expensive as the home that I would sell to move over there. What's the point?
Right.
And so the empty nester, and it's not so too expensive, or the call it the earlier home buyer or equity purchaser. By
Hmm.
earlier, I mean it might be the very first time somebody buys something, and so they're not in a position to buy something that's approaching $1 million, and but they want to and they like the area. So it could be that missing middle, or the early purchaser or the empty
Hmm.
nester. So to be able to do that and still be, have market rates and not be any kind of a rent control, situation, the developer doesn't want to do more units than he's asking. The city actually was interested in that's a product we desperately need, and he
Hmm.
could have done as many as maybe 40 of these units if he had demoed the building and built a new building and went higher than the two stories it currently is, maybe two additional stories.
Right.
But wasn't interested because he felt like it would be, of course, a lot more headache and, everything than a reno. And he felt like it would push the price point above the one he wants to hit, which is five, wants to maybe try to keep it at six or below. And he doesn't feel like he can
Yeah.
do it if he has to scrape and do a complete rebuild because the construction cost would be higher. So you'd have to put more.
Do you remember how many square feet these units are?
Each one, no. I do believe we can pull that up as we're talking because it
The
is on.
interesting part to me, I was looking at homes just recently with my son, and we're looking at we he was looking at Duluth for argument's sake, just kicking stuff around.
Yep.
1,400 square foot, 400,000 on. It's, I mean, some of them are not good looking homes. They're in also older neighborhoods, like old neighborhoods, like 40-year-old neighborhoods, probably 50, well, 40 maybe, or somewhere around there. But they were like 400 grand for like 1,400 or 1,300 square foot home, which is small for that amount of money.
It
And
is.
you really couldn't find anything for less than that. I mean, essentially, a starter home for most people will be around, in this area at least, Duluth, Peachtree Corners, forget Berkeley Lake. It would be somewhere around 400,000 if you're lucky to get that for a small home. So you're really looking at maybe 500,000 for a decent, what you can call starter home, maybe,
Right.
right? And we
Yeah,
talked
and that's
about,
where we're at. So, he's trying to, I'm trying to see if I can find the square footage. All right, here it is. Looks like there's going to be two types of units. Six of the units are 2,000 square feet, 3 bedroom, 3 bath.
okay,
And the remaining units looks like will be 1,500 square feet, 2 bedroom, 3 bath. And it'll have direct access to what, and what's part of this rezoning is for the developer to put in the section of our multi-use trail that goes going around that lake.
right, right.
So now we've also got verbal commitment from the owner of the only property that's in between this one we're talking about and
Hmm.
Ashray, which
Yeah.
is where our current trail ends. They are very open for us to do the trail at the back of there. So it looks like we'll be
Hmm.
all the way around almost to be able to link up to what Cortland did way back when it was built,
Yes,
8 years ago, 7 years
I
ago.
think so. Cortland Apartments you're talking about,
Yeah,
yeah. Which was called something else before that, I think. But
yeah, it
um,
was.
so yeah, interesting to me when you mentioned that about them actually working the same building, because we at one point talked about repurposing office buildings. That it's not easy to do that. It's actually difficult to do that because the plumbing doesn't. People look at that and say, "Well, can't they repurpose?" Well, if you look at a typical office building, the restrooms are probably in the center or in a certain place, and so they're not all spread out, and you have to work your piping and all that. So my assumption is they're going to gut out this building totally and rework the piping to be able to make it work.
It
Sounds like
is.
to me, right?
It is. It's only 2 stories,
Yeah,
and it's built into the slope as it slopes away from, the property
right.
slopes away from Technology Parkway South down towards the lake.
Yeah.
So each of the units will enter at grade for them. So there's no stairs in these units.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
And so,
looking at the elevation plan.
yeah, stacked over each other. So that's, it saves ADA compliance. They don't have to put,
Right.
elevators
Mm-hmm.
in, and the I guess the joists in between the two floors were
Yeah.
built in such a way that there's a lot of room for them to then rerun the plumbing.
Oh,
And
really?
since it's only
Okay.
2 stories, if they rerun it, they just get to go both directions
Yeah, yeah.
and have the unit. So it was one of those where it worked out the way the building was built.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, again, we'd love to have more of this product,
Right.
but you know
So
it'll
I'm
take.
looking, yeah, and I'm looking at I guess the survey plot because there's a lot of parking around it.
Yep.
So what are they doing with that? Because apparently, I mean, it's 13 units, and I can't see 13 units using all that parking around it.
They're reducing the impervious surface footprint of the property by over 13,000 square feet.
Okay.
And
So,
so the the parking, let's see, the total parking spaces on there is 46 for this,
right.
which is a pretty significant reduction. What they're doing with the parking spots that they're ripping out is putting in a park, an outdoor area for the residents.
Okay. No
So
amenities. It's just a park area, and I'm
that's right.
assuming that's
Correct.
that.
Just
And is that along the trail, probably?
it is. So, of course, the trail will be right along the shoreline of
Hmm.
the lake there, including much like if you've been on it behind Ashray, some of it's out on piers, even
Yes.
out away from the lake. So
Yeah.
there'll be a lot of that there, and they'll have a connection from that section out to the road. So
Okay.
you can get out to the sidewalk there and to walk parts of, and then that green space that they're creating is just going to be for the residents, and it's not activated. I think it'll probably be seating and maybe trees and
Well,
maybe something. So not big and not open to
right.
everybody. You don't need it.
Okay. The This has been going on for a while too, I think, right? Their application's been in there for a while. So this obviously was approved just recently at this last city council meeting.
Yes, this
Um,
last Tuesday.
right. Um, so we have a moratorium going on right now, which
Yep.
will end at some point soon. There's going to be a meeting set up and an open house probably October 5th, if I remember correctly, that you said. That it's a public meeting, people will be able to go to, talk about some of the improvement to code, regulations, dealing with buildings, redevelopment. You want to just talk briefly about that?
Yeah. So the
Because
more
we're going to we'll have another podcast on this with Sean Adams about this. But if you could
So
just
I
speak
won't
to it a
go into
little bit.
too much detail because I have somebody who's more of a subject matter expert than me, and that's Sean. But what we did is we wanted to, and I think if those who keep up with this stuff know, we started to have a quite a significant increase in larger rezoning requests coming into the city,
Mm-hmm.
kind of our central business district, if you will. We had some really big ones, the Da Vinci Court, the Day
Right.
Building. And that's just a year after you had some other significant ones like at the Forum.
Yep.
And we know that with the office product, the office market being as soft and under significant duress right now, that combined with we had office product owners starting to come to the city with all sorts of, some of them unique, some of them you could maybe go so far as to say weird or
Mm.
like uses that we're like, but some of them were in a gray area because you've never had a situation where existing office product was envisioned to ever have some of these uses.
Mm-hmm.
So code doesn't specifically speak to it. So it started to get where, so we were like, we need to just take a pause. And this moratorium is again only for a certain area of the city, only for certain uses.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the 25 Tech Park South is the last one that got in, that their
Right.
application came in before the moratorium started, which is why these things take a while to get through the system, if you will, the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we just knew that we needed to relook at our code. We needed to add protections where we might need to add protections. We needed to add language where it might be we want some some of the uses that these owners have been proposing. We wanted to be
Right.
flexible so that weren't sitting on office product that not only was vacant and not generating any revenue for the cities, through our occupational tax, which is
Mm-hmm.
our, you know, one of our most significant revenue streams since we don't have city property tax. But we didn't want office product to not only, go vacant from that standpoint, but vacant office product is not climate controlled. It starts to fall apart quicker when people aren't in it
Sure.
taking care of it, and you
Sure.
just run the risk of the building going down into a state of disrepair such that then nobody would ever want it. And then you get into problems beyond that.
Yeah. So
That
it's so having that moratorium, which comes to an end soon, is a smart move, and I think right, and giving the city an opportunity to address all those issues. So that's coming up to a public meeting too, because there'll be
yeah, so
suggestions of what those changes are.
our internal experts and some external consultants and land use experts have been working on this together,
Hmm.
and they are about ready to have again a product that's worthy of the public, hearing and
Right.
weighing in on. That'll be the October 5th date, open house where you can come in and see what's being proposed. At the end of that, there's a little bit of time that we can take any input from the public and tweak it, and then it'll go in front of Planning Commission and then ultimately in front of City Council.
Cool. What I want to point out to people too is that the city's taken an improvement to the website. So if you're looking at land use plans and such, it was a little bit more difficult to find it, not because it was being hidden, but just because government websites aren't always the easiest to navigate. But you all have really improved the website quite a bit, communication wise. And although there may be people out there that feel that they're not aware of what's going on, stuff is getting out there in a variety of ways. Not everyone's listening. There's a lot of noise out there and stuff. But you all did a good job with. There's a link on the website I'd like people to know called Land Use Cases. This is at the city's website, right on the homepage. And if you go there, you can actually see the current land use cases that are filed and active, along with their application, the site plan, staff report, when the first public hearing is, or read rather, and when the second read is, which is the public hearing where comments can be made and such. So a lot of information here. Um, and there's one, two, three, four, there's 5 cases right now active as we speak. One of them was approved. That was the 25 Technology Parkway South. But so if you're interested in what's coming up, this is the page to go to. These are the
And then
things that you can look at.
and then don't forget, like, and we're going to change it based on your
Mm-hmm.
suggestion, Rico, but it'll essentially say, how does an application become a product? Or
Right.
not product, project. How does an application ultimately become a project? And we created 4 different ways that somebody might be able to kind of see. And it is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of law involved. There's a lot of public meeting and,
Yes.
public hearing requirements. I mean, it's a big deal, as we all know. So we
Yeah.
describe the process in 4 different ways. And so for somebody who wants to know, well, how does a bill become a law? This is essentially
Right.
how does an application become a
That's right.
project.
That's right.
And
It's really easy. And it's really easy. The first part that you go to is how does land use application become approved project? And it shows 13 steps. And it'll explain each one of the steps from pre-application meeting all the way to fees paid, all the way to public hearings, all the way to planning and commission public hearing. I mean, it's 13 steps through this before you finally get to permitting the piece. But it's so for anyone that doesn't know the process, it is a long process to do this and does take time.
flow chart. And when you do it and all the arrows that you're going around, you're like,
Yeah.
wow, there are a lot of steps, but there needs to be.
Yes.
And I don't. Our steps are the same steps that everybody else, every other local government has to go through. There's some slightly different ways they do some of those steps, but we all have to go through those steps.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this will make it a little bit easier, and then hopefully this a little bit easier to understand the process, and specific cases a little bit easier to find them. I believe now there are 7 different vectors in which you can get to the same land use document. You can get to it from the council agenda or a planning commission agenda. If you happen to know that, you can get to it from our calendar. If you know the date, you can get to it from, the department, from the homepage, any way we could think of that somebody might think, oh, I want to find that information. We link it to the same, packet of documents that you described. So hopefully it makes it a little bit easier. And this is based on things we're working on and some input from the community. So
yeah, no, this is a terrific improvement. I haven't usually city government, county websites. It's a very difficult process to find things because of the way it's done. They're not companies, making things easier because it's commercially viable for them to. It's not an Apple website or, but you all have improved it, and it's so much easier now to find those applications than it was before.
And, Rico, our biggest challenge, most government's biggest challenge when it comes to the website is too much information. Because
Yes.
everybody, by law, we have to be transparent. And then beyond the minimum transparencies, if you will, residents, citizens are always saying, well, I didn't know that, or where do I find that information? You should make it, publicly accessible. Well, our website is the epicenter of that. Everything links back to that. Social media posts link back to the website, newsletters back to the website. So our website is constantly under pressure to put more, because people are like, that should have been made available to the public. Well, how do you make it available? You put it on the website. And so it is a challenge for us to make it, put lots of things on the website, but not make it so crammed and condensed that it's
Right.
just hard to find. And that challenge you just brought up is a real challenge that we will struggle with probably all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure. And there's a lot. I mean, I just doing the drop-down menus, you could see dozens of choices of where to go. Um, and the website is chock full of information. I mean, just tremendous amount of information, depending on who you are and what you're looking for. So,
Right.
um, I wanted to actually touch upon something else too that we spoke about last time, which was Jonesbridge Park. And what's going on there. There's some updates. I know there's a public meeting that's going to be held. Let me just say that October, what is this? October 15th,
Yeah.
right? At 2 o'clock at Pictonville Community Center. So it's being held by a community group that, very intimate knowledge of Jonesbridge Park, a lot of stuff going on there. Um, so we talked a little bit about it, but if you could give us again a brief about where we are with this, that would be great.
Well, this is kind of this meeting that you just referred to and some previous ones are the result of residents who live in homes that are up against Jonesbridge Park or nearby, you know,
Right.
neighborhoods that suffer the loss of quality of life at best. If not, there have been instances where somebody ran from police down into Jonesbridge Park. It's a dead end. They bail and they're running through neighborhoods
Hmm.
in the middle of the night with law enforcement chasing them, including aviation units like their helicopter up, with searchlights. And so
Right.
there's some concerns, and Jonesbridge Park is unique in that it's one of the few parks, at least in North Metro Atlanta, that has access to the Chattahoochee River all the
Hmm.
way down to where there are man-made improvements for you to get into the river versus like
Hmm.
walking down a unimproved
Right.
river bank. And it's
Yeah.
also one of the few places that has, I wouldn't call them rapids, but some white water right
Sure.
there.
They have
And
rocks that were added, outcrops to the river and such.
right. And then it's been improved over the years to have
Hmm.
lots of covered pavilion, you know, barbecue pits, things like
Yep.
that,
Yep.
playgrounds. So it's a big park and it's popular for those who might not have access to pools or barbecue or just
Hmm.
playgrounds. But unfortunately, when the park closes, there are people who like to go back in there, and it's a big park, and it goes way back, winds way back in there, and
Sure.
the residents have brought up some concerns, and the authority, the ultimate or not authority, but the ultimate responsible party is Gwinnett County because it's a Parks and Rec Department asset,
Right.
and the residents are concerned that there's access to the park because there's not a gate that's
Hmm.
um, being closed when the park closes, and so people go back there, and it's a minority of the time if there's somebody back there that Gwinnett PD is even either notified or able to send an asset there to deal with a trespasser. And as a
Yeah.
result,
Yeah.
people go back there and they do some pretty, I mean, we've had, gunfire back there.
I
Luckily,
think
nobody, but a
six
lot of,
times. Man.
yeah. And then a lot of vehicular stuff, even short drag racing,
Hmm.
doing donuts back there, um, speakers. You're talking about,
Right.
like I think the hours are dawn to dusk of
Yes.
the park. And so, depending on what time of the year, you could be, as early as 6 or 7 where it's dark and people are still doing things. And so people go back
Hmm.
there, loud music, drugs, We've had a lot of inappropriate behavior back there, and
Yes.
Gwinnett responds when Gwinnett can respond, but it's not been enough, and for the residents to feel
Hmm.
like their quality of life and safety is being protected, and so this frustration is born out of that.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot more people using the park over the past few years than there were before. So I think it's just gotten more aggravating for people. Um, so
I mean, Metro Atlanta is growing, so it's not going to get any less.
no, it's just trying to figure out how to, I know the city was going to pay for the gate, the time gate to go down. Um, and the maintenance of it is negligible over a year. Uh, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's up
we've
to the
not.
county, right?
Yeah, so the county, the Parks and Rec Department of Gwinnett County, it's their facility. Them not closing and opening a gate, their contention is we don't have the staff to do that.
Right.
But the residents themselves have offered to be the ones to do that. Like, look, let us open and close it every day, so at least we prevent it. They haven't wanted to do that. I don't know the reason.
Mm.
I suspect it might be that way. Well, what happens if they close it and then they don't open it, early
Sure.
enough, somebody forgets the next day,
Right.
or what? I don't know. I would submit that, I think we talked about last time where the Fields Club has multiple facilities,
Hmm.
and they have and multiple entrances to multiple facilities, and the Fields Club doesn't have staff to be able to open and close it every day. So the residents that are nearby there
Hmm.
just kind of basically they just because they're oftentimes 10 feet away from the gate
Hmm.
or not much farther. They just kind of organize a little spreadsheet. Hey, Rico, you'll do it on this day. I'll do it this day, and you just go out there and close it, and it's unlocked the next
Right.
day. And when it started, I remember Fields Club happened to be on the board saying, "Look, if this doesn't work out well, we're going to have to you know, not allow you to do that anymore.
Hmm.
If you're locking it before somebody can get out and had, the authority to be back there or whatever, that's worked out well. So I'm not sure why Gwinnett didn't say, well, we'll let you try it unless you screw it up and then we'll, remove
Right.
that. But they just said no thanks. So then at the city, we offered to buy and have installed a vehicular gate similar to
Hmm.
what you see at, say, railroad crossings.
Hmm.
And have that gate, we researched ones that automatically go down at a certain time and go back up at another time. So it could be programmed to do it automatically, and it was remotely accessible so that emergency services could have it go up, if they needed to get back there. And we offered to donate and install it if Gwinnett would then take it over, because it would be securing their park and it would be at their entrance. And we don't have
Right.
the authority to restrict some access to property that the city doesn't own. And the company that quoted the price for the purchase and install also gave us price about $1,000 for the annual maintenance, for this company to do annual maintenance and for them to have the remote accessibility. So it would have been, they accepted it, and $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is an organization that has over $1 billion budget,
Correct.
um, but $1,000 a year, and they have declined that option as well. So I'm not sure
Mm.
where it'll go. We will also have a presence at that October meeting, but
15th. Okay.
yeah, the 15th, we'll have a presence at that meeting as well. Our marshals will. But unfortunately, it's not going to get better. We've got to figure out something. And so hopefully we can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always there's one thing or another that goes on in the city. Everything, from town center parking deck to the forum to all these other places. There was just another purchase done in the community of the $9 million purchase of the shopping center on Holcomb Bridge Road, where used to be the Outback Center. Restaurant used to be there, but that's where you'll see Peachtree Corners Eye Clinic, Dunkin' Donut, Taco Bell. So that property was just purchased. Um,
Well,
probably
North
don't.
American property was just bought by Jamestown.
There you go. There was another right now, and I spoke to someone from North American Properties. Nothing will change. Apparently, it will continue on with the plan that they have, the improvements that they want to do. Um, so but yeah, things change, right?
They
As
do,
soon
and there's
as
see, no government can say, well, you can never sell it, or you can
right,
never, do this. We'd love to, but we
yeah,
can't ensure that a company remains a viable company. Companies
yeah,
go out of business, they
yeah,
merge, they make business decisions to go different directions. I mean,
right,
it is an ever evolving thing, and so you try to build in protections against the worst case from happening.
hmm
But legally we can only go so far. We just want to make sure we go as far as the law allows us to
sure,
restrict certain things from happening after
yeah,
that initial
right.
change.
I mean, we're fortunate that we have a good neighbor there. For example, at the Forum, I mean, they just opened the plaza.
Yep.
They're going to move on to, I think, the parking deck later next year or something.
Yeah, they're
Um,
working on that, because that'll be next. And yeah, that's certainly, there are people who have been complaining about why would they remove some parking if they didn't already have a, and it's not.
it's just a nicer looking place now.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. Well,
yeah,
I will say an update on the parking though. They have made the decision that it's more cost effective for them to take the overflow parking for those who are visiting the proper shoppers, if you will.
hmm
And they were going to move that and put it in the surface parking lot by Belk.
yes,
But given the amount of utilities, stormwater, water and sewer, everything that are
mm,
underground and what it would take,
yeah,
they're going to add it to the pedestal that will be part of the parking for the apartments and the hotel on each
yeah,
side of the front entrance. So if you're coming in off of 141,
right,
there'll be a parking decks on both sides as you're going down kind of the angle towards the fountain.
yeah, yeah.
And that's
So they're going
what
to
they're going to
be what?
add another level on each side for the shoppers to park at. And then those who are either in the multifamily or the hotel are in other levels. So
Oh,
that'll be
oh
where the
wow.
parking is called pedestal. It's built in where you have the units above it. And
Mm,
that's where, so, really it's the same distance of a walk. Maybe it's a little bit easier to get to it, drive into it. So you wouldn't
hmm
have to go through the fountain and across the way to the back.
So when would that happen then?
It's still happening at the same time. It's just they're going to build the
Mm,
parking for the shoppers first.
yeah.
The
So that's
knowledge
gonna.
continue to go up above it when it's time for the
Gotcha.
hotel or the multifamily to go in.
So when you're driving up, there's a part where it sinks down on either side. So they're gonna build, and that's parking right there also. But they're gonna build the deck then onto that parking, those parking
Yeah, well, I'm not
spaces
so
going
sure
up.
they're not going to do one level below it and then keep
Oh,
going up. But
okay.
yeah, that's when you're driving down from Peachtree
Yeah.
Parkway down Forum Drive, you're
Mm,
driving towards the fountain.
right.
On each side, there is, below
hmm
that ramp down there, there's the ability. One's behind, what is it, Ulta? I think it's the back of Ulta, and the other one is the back of Barnes and Noble.
It's not Ulta, I don't think. Ulta's on the other side. So it's
Oh,
behind Barnes and Noble, and
what's
there's
the
I
one
forget.
on the left?
Yeah, I forget what the retail is over there. It's a retail store. forget what that is.
That's
So,
essentially where you're going to
okay.
go up.
And they're still, I know they're still, able to do the apartments is what they want to do above that area. Are they still the a boutique hotel of some sort? Was supposed to go on the other side, I think.
Yeah, the only
So,
change is just moving the shoppers parking from where the Belks was to closer to the
right.
road.
Okay. So they're not
So
doing anything back there, like you said, because of utilities and because I drove back there recently. I would stop back there this past weekend to go up to to do some shopping, and I noticed the utilities and stuff like that. I was wondering how they would build that out there.
it
Um,
just was more expensive to do all that than it is to
yeah,
add a level
yeah,
on the two sides of the main entrance. So
yeah, which
that
makes
was a
sense.
decision.
Yeah, because I was thinking also because isn't that a retaining wall back there too? I think the weight of that parking deck on there I was thinking is going to be tremendous with the deck and the cars. It was just
So
like,
that
can
they
that
were
even
going to
hold that?
have pilings in
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
but they were going to have to relocate utility lines. You start getting into, and I think there's also a Georgia Power's got a, what do they call it?
Transformer. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's or a transform, like it's a station. It does multiple things. It could be a
Mm,
trans. Anyway, Georgia Power's got what they need to serve the entire property is back in that parking lot.
gotcha.
So,
Yeah,
the residents who live back in Amberfield, should be happy because there won't be any change back there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It'll
the
be
timing
towards
of
the.
the change, they, but those who are complaining about, oh, there's not enough parking because they've removed some in the middle,
Mm,
do what they did. I mean, there is parking, plenty of it
yes,
really right now. It's just
yes.
you have to walk maybe a little bit farther than finding. And I know that's
And
frustrating. Who wouldn't like to park right in front of a
yes, but if you could park right in front of something, that means there's not enough business going on, not for anything. 'Cause that's really what that is. And if you're walking and you go to the plaza side, I mean, they've done a really nice job there, I think. An area that you can eat, you can hang out there. The more stuff there will be, more of the restaurants. I mean, it's just going to be a nicer atmosphere to be at, I think. But, Brian, thank you. It's been a pleasure learning more about what the city's doing and stuff. Um, so everyone, thank you for being part of, for listening in. And if you have any questions, for sure, put it into the comments. This is a simulcast live feed if that's what you're listening to on Facebook or YouTube. So we'll try to answer them post the show, and I'll put some of the links to some of these things that we talked about in the show notes. This way you can find it there as well. But hang in there for a second, Brian. But thank you again for being with us. And also thank you for our sponsor, EV Remodeling, Eli, who does a great job in building renovation work from start to finish. So check them out. He's a resident of Peachtree Corners. His website is evremodelinginc.com. Great guy. So check out, and we appreciate their support for these podcasts and our publication. Thanks again. Take care, guys.